Why do you think that those matches, still with these fans nowadays, resonate in such a strong way?
I think I think I was a better storyteller than any of the wrestlers they got today. To be honest, and the wrestling's changing now. It's being modified into something else now, and I sense when I watch like WrestleMania, when I watch it this year, there's no drama anymore. Like the drama is all stage drama and sort of like theater. It's not the actual wrestling is not drama anymore. It's all high spots. Everything's high spots, and there's no psychology anymore. Not based on what I used to know. And I know you can't just stay in the same. Everyone keep wrestling the same style that I did, and I think that it's modified to a faster, more hectic sort of pace in the matches today. But I think the reason people remember those matches because they're always dramatic. There was a long visual sort of sell job where you sold and sold and sold and built the momentum of the match as you did until you finally explode with an in my case always made a pretty long intense comeback that left a lot of lefts and rights, and where you could follow the ending and then something happens again, and then the ending is a little bit further ahead, but it's like there was always a mystery as to what's going to happen next or where it's going to go. But in today's wrestling, I find not that there's not, they do some amazing stuff, and I think there's some amazing athletes, but I don't find anyone knows how to tell a story.
Well, I think that's what amazes me because you had last year's match of the year in the WWE was actually an NXT match between two British guys. I don't know if you will have seen it, but they wrestled for the UK Championship in Chicago, and they did 20 minutes, the two of them in the ring. And these guys have wrestled together since they were 15 years old. So they just told a story. It was all in the ring. It was all contained. It was very clear heel baby situation. And everyone absolutely loved it. The crowd really popped for it. It told a story. And it kind of said to me, well, why can't we do more of that in wrestling now if when people do it, it goes over so well?
Well, I'm a firm believer that wrestling's it has its ups and downs or flows. Like it's flowing a certain way right now, but I think that you'll find that wrestling is gonna change again, and because people will eventually get tired of high spots and leapfrogs and all the. I have to say it's kind of pretty phony wrestling today. Like nobody in their right mind can believe any of it's real right from the beginning to end. Whereas, you watch Wembley's the match I had with British Bulldog with I can remember watching it with some sports fans, actually some sports radio broadcasters in the States one time that had never seen any of my matches, and they put it on the big screen in this sports bar I was in, and they almost bought into it like it was real, like they thought it was the greatest sports wrestling match of all time, and they talked about it at length. And it's like that was before that was years and years ago. That was probably about 93 or so. But I don't see that kind of drama anymore in any of the matches, and I sometimes sense that the wrestling fans dictate policy, and the wrestling fans, maybe in their own way, got a little tired of Bret Hart style wrestling. That slow, that sell, the comeback. It gets to be very. If you watch enough of my matches, they're kind of, they repeat themselves in a lot of ways. But today's wrestling is missing a lot of what I incorporated in my matches, whereas my matches were missing a lot of what they incorporated. But I think that the fans dictate policy, and over time, like you said, if they reacted so strongly to those two British wrestlers who were just doing good wrestling, that tells you that the audiences are starting to lean that way more. And if that's the case, then it'll eventually evolve back into that.
It's great. We've got the UK tournament coming up later this month as well, and those guys are involved in it. What was amazing about it, though, Carl Bennett, who writes for our website, did a piece suggesting that one of those two guys, Pete Dunne, might be the first ever top-tier WWE champion from Britain. And it made me realise that Davey Smith never was the top-tier champion. I mean, when he won the Intercontinental title from you at Wembley, that was kind of the peak for him within the WWE. I thought that really surprised me.
Well, I think it's a sad situation maybe with Davey Boy that Like if you really think about it, and I don't know who's to know, maybe Vince McMahon would know, but he had the whole world in front of him when he won the title from me here in England. I mean, he couldn't have. It could have been a more glorious opportunity for him to plant himself strongly in that top, that echelon where he's the top baby face, and he was very close to it. And I know that probably going back to earlier in the summer, I don't want to go into a big long thing about Davey, but his drug problems were starting to become more apparent all the time. And there's a lot of people that want to sort of sugarcoat that or pretend it wasn't so. But I mean, Davey had serious drug problems then, and if he could have maybe turned those around, maybe in fact he could have been that star. I think Davey could have been a lot better than he was, especially like not so much about his work in the ring, but his mic skills and his talking and the way if he maybe applied himself a little, tried a little harder and got like I did. I wasn't necessarily considered a great talker and stuff before I became champion, maybe intercontinental champion. But once I started realize that how important that role is, I made a point of getting better or improving on my interviews to the point that people, his interviews aren't like Hulk Hogan's, but they're sincere. And I think that worked for me, where people still bought my shtick kind of thing. But I noticed with even going back to the Bulldogs when they were on top as the maybe the greatest tag team of all time, and people loved their wrestling in the early, in the late '80s or mid '80s. They were so strong in the WWF back then. But neither one of them put an ounce of energy into their interviews. If anything, it wasn't even important to them. I remember they almost joked about how they could give a crap about what they said, and they didn't need it. It wasn't part of their thing, and they didn't try hard on the interviews, and Dynamite didn't try very hard. Neither did Davey, and you could see now that sort of miscalculation. I think I would call that is probably has a lot to do with not remembering Davey today. If Davey hadn't passed away when he did, a few years later after Owen died, I don't know that anyone could tell me that he had another big break coming. Another big, like he's going to have a second run. Maybe he'll end up with the title, or he'll do this, or he'll do that. I think Davey was already on the skids and was already on the downhill slide after that. But I think Davey had the ability. I just think he didn't have the right direction.
You mentioned, Owen, if you don't mind me asking, it was the 19th anniversary recently, and I saw a tweet that you put out where you said, I miss you every day, Owen. I vow to keep your memory alive despite the efforts to let you fade away. Do you think he's not respected in the same way as some of the other top guys of that era?
Well, I'd just say, I think with a lot of people, if they're not in the Hall of Fame, what kind of Hall of Fame is it? Like, if Dynamite Kid's not in the WWF or WWE Hall of Fame, what kind of Hall of Fame is it? It's a shitty Hall of Fame. I'm embarrassed that I'm embarrassed on their part that they can take so many great wrestlers and exclude them, but put their own made up like the Rock and Roll Express or whatever they were. They got in, and when they never even wrestled in WWF. And no offense to those guys, I know they're actually a really good team and good guys and all that, but I remember when they showed up in WWF and they scratched them off the card because they didn't think they were big enough or good enough, and yet they're in the Hall of Fame. They're in the Hall of Fame. Doc Hendricks, the Freebirds are in the Hall of Fame. They should be in the Hall of Fame for being drunk. My memories of all three of them was that they were too drunk to get in the ring most of the time. They were inebriated all the time, and most of the time they didn't show up. I remember when Andre the Giant fired Michael Hayes in the dressing room for being an hour late and drunk in the dressing room. And I remember Michael Hayes saying, you can't fire me. And I remember Andre saying, you watch, we'll see who's here tomorrow. Either it'll be me or you. And I never saw him again for 3 or 4 years. And he came back as Doc Hendricks. And now he's practically, he's one of Vince's right-hand guys. And he's in the Hall of Fame as the Freebirds, which to me is, I don't have any problem with anybody being in the Hall of Fame. I'm sure lots of wrestlers have got the merit to be in there. But in saying that, I also believe that the Demolition should be in there. I believe the Dynamite Kid should be in there. I believe Davey Boy Smith should be in there. And I can go on and on. And Owen is another prime example. I'm embarrassed that the Hall of Fame hasn't got Owen Hart in there. Maybe on a integrity standpoint, Owen was one of the most respected and sort of admired guys that ever got in the business for his integrity and his reputation for being a good man, and everyone knows that. And why they wouldn't they won't acknowledge him and won't put him in is beyond me. I'm tired of even talking about it.
That program you guys worked all the way through when you did it through Mania, through SummerSlam with the cage match. I mean, that's up there with one of my favourite all time. But I wonder, I heard you speaking on Edge and Christian's show recently where you did it with Stone Cold and talked about Mania 13. Is there a particular feud from that era? Is there a particular match or a particular program you run that really sticks out to you as being a favourite?
Well, I think you tend to only go by what you see on TV now. And everybody, the WrestleMania 10 match that Owen and I had was really the first match we ever had, period. And it's so hard to go in, first match, WrestleMania 10, having never wrestled each other before. Styles, Owen was a completely different style than me. And I think we did a really good job. We had a great match, that first match. But I think, as an example, I think we finished the tour, or finished the WrestleMania match, and like the very next day we flew to England. I think it was the heart attack tour or something. But some of the matches I had with Owen 4, 5, 6, 7 days later in England here, I think it was a 14-day tour, but some of the momentum or some of the matches that we had said such they were better than the one at WrestleMania 10. Where our timing was getting better, we were starting to understand each other's styles, which doesn't happen overnight. And to go in there and have a great match with any wrestler, first time you've ever tied up with them, is mostly what people go by today. A lot of the matches I had with Owen, the really, really good ones, they never filmed. They're not on camera, but they were. I had an Iron Man match with Owen in Los Angeles at the Forum that would blow away the WrestleMania 10 match.
We need a time machine immediately. I want to be there.
Blow away the cage match. It was so good. I wanted to use that as the formula for the match I had with Sean. They were the ones that were keen on having a one-fall match, which I understood, but I also thought, having a one fall for 60 minutes is a pretty long, boring match. And I hope we can keep their attention for an hour, and I think we did, and that's a credit to Sean. And the idea that Pat Patterson was the guy that had the idea for the Iron Man match that was one fall, and that worked. But I also know that I had a formula for a match with Owen that consisted of about 5 falls, but it was, to me, a better match than the Iron Man match that I had with Sean.
So back and forth. I'd love to have seen that, but it's a real shame. The last thing I want to ask you about beyond WWF, I don't know how much you follow what happens elsewhere, but Eric Bischoff has started this new show, this 83 weeks, where they talk about the period of time that WCW and the Monday Night Wars, and he's done specific episodes on various eras, and one of them was about your run in WCW, and he owns up himself to not knowing what he was necessarily doing with you, not having a real plan for you, and he takes some of the blame on his shoulder. But he also says that he felt that more could have come to the table creatively from the other side. Do you think that's fair?
No, Eric Bischoff is an idiot, total complete idiot, and maybe the single stupidest idiot that ever got into wrestling. I could sit here for too long and talk about all the stupid things that Eric, and a guy that was never came through on anything he ever said. He had zero ideas for wrestling. You could go in and give him ideas for wrestling. Why don't I put me with Booker T, put me with Chris Benoit, put me with this guy, he always had a bullshit excuse why he couldn't do it. He always had some reason why, we'd love to put you with him, but you can't do that because of because it's raining outside or something. His logic was ridiculous. He'd come up with excuses why he couldn't do this and why he couldn't do that when he's supposed to be the boss. He dropped the ball. If you look at the day I got there, that whole thing with the referee, It was such a stupid idea in the first place, sticking me in the ring as a referee. and it just went downhill from there. And he can say, "Oh, it was Bret Hart." He likes to say, I've heard him say this, that I came there and I was a broken man. I didn't have it in the heart anymore I broke my heart with wrestling, and that's such horseshit. Absolutely an insult to me. It makes me so mad. I'm glad he's not around me.
He's here right now.
I wanted so hard to make a difference. I wanted to go in there and do everything I could possibly do to turn that, like to make a dent against Vince and to get even for what happened to me. I was not a guy that came there not wanting to deliver. And for him to suggest that is an insult to the highest order, because I was, if you look at my wrestling in 1997 with that whole year, going from Stone Cold at WrestleMania 13 to Undertaker at SummerSlam and even Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series, even the Patriot. I mean, everybody I worked with, I had some of my greatest matches. And I went right from there to WCW, unbeaten. I had beaten all the top stars. I'd beaten Undertaker at SummerSlam. I'd beaten Austin. I had never really lost to Shawn. I knocked out Vince McMahon. I couldn't have come in with more momentum. I was like the hottest thing in wrestling. And they did absolutely, his genius was to put me in the ring as a referee and have the referee do a fast count, which he didn't do. And everything he did was so stupid, didn't make any sense, didn't work. It fell flat. And he owns those. That's Eric Bischoff's booking or his thinking. He was an idiot, and he couldn't do anything. And even when I did that thing with Goldberg with the metal plate, talk about pulling teeth. I mean, I don't know how I even finessed that and got that done. They resisted and fought that, and even though Eric Bischoff told me he loved the idea and to go with it, the night of the show, he did everything he'd do to sabotage it, and from having Hulk Hogan come in at the end and beat the crap out of me and then beat the crap out of Goldberg. And I remember going, well, why would he do that? And I said, am I working with Hulk Hogan? He goes, no. I said, is Goldberg working with him? He goes, no. I said, well, why the hell would Hulk Hogan come down and wipe out both of us? It doesn't make any sense. It's so stupid. And everything about Eric Bischoff, he was the stupidest guy I ever met. I mean, I actually don't have a good thing to say about anything about Eric Bischoff. He's an absolute total idiot.
Well, I hate to end on a negative note, but we've got to wrap up because you've got to have the same conversation with this.
Don't get me going on Eric Bischoff. I'll take my coat off and come out of retirement.
But you can get the book, which is, for me, still one of the best wrestling books out there. And, of course, people will be hearing this after the Brighton show, but they can still come to Cardiff, to Oldham and London as well. So come and see Bret doing his thing, because this has been great. Really enjoyed it. And you get to see it for a couple of hours rather than just for 15 minutes.
I know I'm going to get some good questions.
Good man. Really appreciate it, Bret. Thank you.